Hi again, everybody. I have a message here from Elliot, and here's his story. Dear Ollie, there's no contribution because I don't work, and I can't ask my dad for money because if he knew what it was for, it wouldn't go well. I'm working on getting an income now, and donating to you is one of the first things I'll be doing. I don't know how long it'll take, but I'll explain my job situation in the letter. You hear it with every letter, I'm sure, but thank you for what you do. I found your channel some time ago when I was younger and confused and still under the fog of my narcissistic mother. I'm 19 years old now, and a couple months ago I found your channel again, and so many things have been clicking into place. You said so many helpful things and make so many helpful statements. Every now and then you'll say something that rings out so much and clears up so much confusion. I go on for hours about how amazing you are. I could go on for hours about how amazing you are and how amazing what you do is. Instead, I'll actually write what I meant to write about. I am so sorry that this is so long. I guess I'm just trying to expose her or to have someone validate that these aren't normal experiences in case I start doubting myself again. You can call me Elliot. Good luck with your situation with your wife's teeth. So like I said, I'm 19. I'm also disabled by autism, sensory processing disorder, and random psychotic issues. Right now, I'm in the middle of a situation where I can't seek any kind of help or take any medication. Hopefully that will change soon. With the sensory processing, what happens is that if it's too loud, my ability to hear goes away for a time. Either it's quieter or until another sense is less stimulated. If I make eye contact for too long, my vision goes away until I stop. If I feel too much, it either hurts or my brain stops processing touch completely. With the psychosis, it's hallucinations, delusions, and paranoia, but I maintain a level of self-awareness during the episodes. I know this isn't real, but it's still happening. These are relevant to how my mother treated me, and that's what I was immediately popped into my head when you said narcissistic mother and autism. Because, like, look, I'm not an expert on autism. I don't know a whole hell of a lot about it. But from what I've seen is I think a lot of autism can be triggered at an early age by some kind of traumatic episode where you are now just, I think it's the ultimate form of escaping into your own brain, into your own head, and throwing up these protection mechanisms, which it almost sounds like is what's happening. Look, the loud noise thing is something I relate to so much. I can't deal with sudden loud noises. Thunder doesn't bother me. Thunder, for some reason, doesn't bother me. But what it is man made loud noises, something that wouldn't be from nature or natural. Slamming of doors, slamming, pounding on countertops, any kind of like sudden noise in the back caused by that triggers me to the point where I'm ready to shut down and I'm in a panic. I think the same thing might be happening to you with your senses where you're triggered by whatever caused this trauma to begin with in your childhood, then causes your body to shut down the senses. So like what I'm thinking is whatever happened to you in your past, you saw, heard, and felt all three. So all three of those senses shut down for whatever triggers it, whether you saw it, you heard it, you feel it, it shuts down. I don't know because I'm just the beginning of your story, so we'll see. But I think that might be the cause. That might be something you want to look at. She has a history of telling me things are normal when they clearly aren't. When I was 4 or 5, I started having what I thought were dreams of being raped by a man. All right, Elliot. I mean, I think I know where this is going, and this kind of goes back to what I just said to you. this might be what triggered your autism and your sensory deprivation to begin with. Obviously, this bothered me a lot, and I relayed them to my mother. She was already short with me and irritated that I wanted to talk to her alone because she wanted to sit on the computer instead. We went to her room and I explained clearly that a man was forcing me to have sex with him in dreams. I remember saying, and then we had sex, and I didn't want to, but he did. And I had stated other details that I didn't even understand were sexual molestation until I grew up. In reply, she said, that's normal. Everybody has those dreams. They're sex dreams. A 4 or 5-year-old should have no concept of what sex is, especially with a man. I don't know how a child would just dream that up. Unless maybe he was exposed to it on your computer because you're watching gay porn, because some crazy women like to do that, or something happened to you. Ollie, that's not a normal response, is it? No, 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 it's not a normal response. What I said made it so clear what was happening, and I grew up believing that sex meant men raping and hurting me. I grew up sexually repressed because anything to do with sex at all made me feel scared and small. I now consider myself asexual, but I think it's more accurate to say I have a skewed version of sexual intimacy. Without going into detail, I was very messed up as a kid, and it's because she told me that what was happening in those dreams was sex. I know that anyone I talk to, family, friends even, will just say that she was young and didn't know better. That's a crock of shit. Your 4-year-old boy tells you he's having dreams that a man is having sex with him. Let me ask you something, Elliot. You were a child and you knew there was something wrong with it. She was an adult, no matter how, regardless of how young she might have been. You're old enough to know that. I don't buy that one bit. She's older than I am, and she said that to me, though. And I was maybe 14 when I learned my friend had been molested, and even with my messed up sense of sexuality, I knew better to say than to say it was normal. Age isn't an excuse for this, is it? No. And that's what I just said. Elliot, you're a smart kid. Like the way this is written, you're a very intelligent kid. The trend of normalizing awful things continued through my childhood and teen years. I had already started hearing voices as a kid when I was about 8. Angry voices screaming my name in my ear or commanding me to stop, even when I wasn't doing anything. I told her about these. She said it was normal. It isn't normal. It isn't normal. And what I would think the screaming voices in your head is whoever was doing this to you. And now it kind of just plays back on a loop in traumatic times. I had sensory issues from as far back as I can remember. Any bold color against a solid background moves on its own, like it's hoovering in front. Constant static in my vision that makes it difficult to see. I can't ride bikes or drive because while I can see what's in front of me, I don't process it at normal speed, and I'm in danger to people around me and myself. I also have hearing problems. Background and foreground noise are basically at the same volume for me at times. She told me that it was all normal, and essentially that I was blowing things out of proportion. I can't even count how many times I told her as a child that I was depressed and suicidal and begged her for some kind of help. She always told me it's normal for kids and teenagers to feel that way. Being suicidal has become such a normal part of my life that whether or not I should kill myself is a calm, casual, mental discussion at any time that I'm upset. Your mother knows what happened to you, Elliot, and she's hoping you try to kill you. She's hoping you kill yourself. Thoughts like, okay, I had an argument with my best friend and they're mad at me. I messed up. If I kill myself, I won't be able to upset them anymore. It isn't suicidal ideation like my therapists in the past have said. I am not casually thinking about suicide. I'm casually deciding whether I'm going to kill myself on a regular basis. The only thing that stops me is the fact that someone will have to find my body and live with that memory afterward. So, along with normalizing rape, psychosis, sensory problems, and depression and suicide, she also turns the tables completely when confronted with these things later. I stated outright that I was sexually abused and who abused me, and she acted like she had no idea there had ever been any signs. My delusions became debilitating in my teen years, and while she still did nothing to help me and had no idea where they suddenly came from. When I was diagnosed with autism, she said she didn't notice any signs, but it makes sense now. Looking back, while also completely ignoring the fact that I actually told her before that I was pretty sure I had autism. She had said I didn't have any signs then. I attempted suicide and had been hospitalized for suicidal thoughts a few times in the last few years. Every single time she would say, I had no idea. I didn't notice any signs. Or even worse, why didn't you tell me you were feeling so badly? I'm really sorry, Elliot. I know exactly what all this is like. It's gaslighting. And I'm sure she said this stuff to you when you were in the hospital so other people can hear it. So they didn't think she was a piece. She knows she's a piece of shit. And then she knows you have these problems, and it's to mentally gaslight you into her narrative of things. I hate thinking about those phrases. There are so many things wrong with them. I could rant for hours about them, but I won't. Maybe in another letter sometime. Another thing that she did regarding my suicidal childhood was turn my reasons into criticisms or insults. If I told her it was because I felt like I couldn't do anything right, for the next month she would go behind me and redo every chore, tell me how I should be able to do it right, etc., etc. When I told her it was because I knew I was difficult to live with, the very next morning she made a point to say I was difficult to live with. If it was because I felt like a burden, she played the martyr role hard, and no matter what it was, anything she had to do for me was blown out of proportion. I spent my whole childhood wearing clothes that were too small because asking for something that she couldn't say no to, something that other adults would consider necessary or judge her for not doing. She would get so angry, and I would always end up in tears. It's another thing, Elliot, why I never I have to this day problems asking for help or asking for anything because you get sick of the rejection, and when you get sick of the rejection you stop asking and you learn to deal with it. I will tell you this right now, and I'm about halfway through your story. Don't worry about getting a job. Okay, you got to worry about your mental health. You got to worry about you. I mean, really, I think you should probably be on disability. You should probably be on SSI. Don't worry about making a contribution to my channel or anything like that. Don't. You know, if you really do want to work, you got to be able to, you're going to have to do it in stages. You know, you're going to have to be mentally strong enough and have enough confidence to be able to stand up for yourself in the workplace, be able to speak out and ask for things. And you got to get yourself right up here first. You got to get yourself right in here first. You know, so don't worry. Don't put too much pressure on yourself about getting a job. Now, I know you're going to want to get out, so I'll talk about that at the end as well. Everything ended in tears when she was around. Going to the zoo, to the park, and to the mall. Anything and everything was miserable because she made it that way. She criticized everyone for everything. She would give me a look that would instantly kill me inside. I knocked the glass off the shelf at the mall once, and I immediately started sobbing because my mom would be mad. The employer didn't make us pay for it, probably because I was crying so hard, because it was expensive. She wouldn't get more angry. She would just get more angry with me for crying, and that would make it worse. I was like that until 14, and my depression came through as anger. The anger turned crying into sass and talking back. I didn't know why I was so angry or what she had done wrong specifically. And that's the fog I've gotten out of recently. It was just a confusing mess of negative emotions that I couldn't find the root of until I was away from it, away from her. Going back to the sexual abuse, she also minimized it as much as possible and made it all about her when I came out with it. First of all, it only happened because she handed me over regularly to a man that was an alcoholic and severely abusive through her entire life. The day I told her outright what he did, she acted surprised. She said, if I knew he would do something like that, I would never let you go with him. But then she told me about how he used to touch her. Later on, she was drinking with a friend, something she didn't do often. And she revealed more about what he did to her when she was little. She told my dad about some of it when she thought I couldn't hear. So she knew the whole time. Once, when I was talking about how my friend's grandfather abused his daughter, and then tried to abuse his grandkids, my mom says it never stops with the child. I don't understand how anyone could think he wouldn't do it to their kids too. And this was before I told her what happened to me. Obviously, that statement only applies to other people. My mom let the same man that sexually abused her babysit me, and then pretended to have no idea he was capable of abusing children after making a statement like that not long before. She also, like everything else, made it all about her, how she felt so bad that it happened, crying and getting upset until I ended up reassuring her that I didn't blame her for it, even though I absolutely do blame her for letting it happen. As soon as I started talking about what happened to me, she started telling everyone what he did to her. She never mentioned it before then. Other times she would casually bring up memories, good and bad, of the man with me. She would bring up the man that raped me as casual conversation anytime we were alone. I finally said, I don't care about him. I don't want to hear about him. And even though she got pissy, it stopped for a while. Not for long though. Also, I wasn't allowed to go to school and didn't receive education beyond the very basics. Reading, writing, and counting. I used to beg to go to school, and I wasn't allowed. I would ask her to teach me, and she wouldn't. My dad worked and slept when he was home because he was depressed, so I didn't ask him. She called it unschooling, where children were supposed to pursue education on their own, and yet she refused to teach us anything when we wanted to learn. if we came to her with questions, she would treat us like shit for not knowing something. Well, you must have gotten educated somewhere, because this is a very well written and put together email. One of the best I've read, to be honest with you. And you're 19. I've had college professors write to me who can't write this well. I've had professionals write to me who don't write this well. Trust me, doctors, lawyers who don't write this well. When I had a basic grasp of what evolution was, I asked, are people different races because we evolved from different monkeys? And she made me feel like the most racist person in the world. She didn't bother explaining how races came about, or how weather and climate affects physical traits or anything. She just scared me into never asking any questions about race again. And that's the way it was with any topic and subject. Right, because her goal was to keep you ignorant, because she realizes how smart you are. And because you're this intelligent, you're going to figure out what she did and what happened and expose her. That's why she kept you and tried to keep you in ignorance. She claims now she regrets unschooling me and my siblings, but still places the blame on us for not learning anything. We're also part of an unschooling, homeschooling group that was at the core a cult. Just about every family was fucked up. If they weren't, they didn't stay. There was alcoholism, emotional and physical abuse, sexual abuse. The parents, all mothers, were the same. They sat amongst themselves and gossiped about their enabling or narcissistic husbands, and further enabled each other. They kept the abuse from the other household secret. None of the kids were learning anything, and they all knew and didn't care. The kids, on the other hand, regularly talked to each other out. The kids, on the other hand, regularly talked each other out of suicide. We all talked secretly about how messed up our parents were. We were all told in different ways to keep it a secret, that what happened behind closed doors stayed there. So we were a bunch of kids huddled up under a playground talking about the last week worth of abuse. We didn't call it abuse, though, because we thought it was normal. It was all any of us knew. We were brainwashed by our own mothers and our own friends' mothers that we were bad kids, that they loved us more than anything, and that they were good parents. It's so scary to think back on the dynamics and realize that there were so many adults out there willing to convince minors not to seek help, that they were being raped and beaten on a daily basis. The group is still around, and that terrifies me. I plan on writing about it one day and publishing my story with this cult, because I don't think enough people realize what unschooling and homeschooling groups can allow. The social isolation, the ability for parents to completely monitor who their kids can talk to is scary. The things that went on are unbelievable. Sounds like a gulag. Government re-education training. It's exactly what it is. It's a narcissistic gulag to re-educate you from the truth. You know, as I read this more and more, and I hear you, finding a job isn't your calling, Elliot. It's writing. You are a smart kid. I can't keep telling you that enough. And this unschooling thing that you're talking about here, you need to pick up the ball and run with that. You need to write about it. You need to talk about it. You need to get it out there. You need to expose it. This is what can save you. Trust me, you have all the tools. I did attend part of 8th grade after begging, but ended up quitting for what looked like stress, but was actually undiagnosed mental problems. Specifically, it's really hard to get through class when noise makes you lose your hearing and looking at the teacher makes you lose your vision. Yet that's normal. I was just exaggerating. Then I was forced to go into 10th grade and I passed thanks to the recent law that says you have to retake tests until you pass, and a lot of retaking tests. I barely passed, but I did. In the 11th, things got so bad I was hospitalized and fell behind in school. So I switched to online school where I started failing more and more until I finally just dropped out. At one point in my struggle with math, my mom decided to tutor me with her college textbooks. Well, they don't teach math the same way they did back then, and they also don't let you work the way work the way I'm sorry. And then they also don't let you work the way that she was insisting that I did. I started getting tutoring from a teacher instead and casually mentioned to my mother one day that they taught it differently at school and that I understood this way better. Oops. To this day, she tells people that the reason she wouldn't help me with my schoolwork was because I told her she was doing it wrong, and insinuates that I said she was a bad teacher. And she was, don't get me wrong, but I never said that to her at all. Now I'm a dropout and I can't drive or work. My mom divorced my dad in a couple months ago she took my little brother and sister and moved out. I stayed with a friend for the last 2 weeks of her being home because everything she had done had been building up, and I finally just snapped and left before I said something horrible to her. While I was with a friend, I told my dad, who has enabled some things, but mostly was unaware of what was going on, that she was abusive. And I said that if I didn't get my suicidal little brother, who she was treating the same way and she had treated me, a therapist, I was going to call CPS and let them handle it. He has a therapist and he's on antidepressants now, but he and my little sister aren't allowed to speak freely with me anymore. My mom won't let them come over if they're allowed to be alone with me. So on weekends while my dad is here and has them, my time around them is supervised. So that's pretty telling in my opinion. That she's hiding her behavior from me. I've been trying to remain no contact with her since she left, and trying to deal with the fact that nobody takes me seriously when I try to explain what she's like. My dad won't even talk about it at all and won't let me talk with my siblings. I think he's afraid she'll try to take full custody and keep them all from him. I'm going to try to keep this short. She knows that if she wants a relationship with me, she has to ask. She has to ask me how she's hurt me or how to fix it. I have stated and restated that, and that's all she can do, and otherwise I don't want her to contact me. There have been 2 confrontations, of which one was in person. She came over pretending to help my narcissistic older sister with moving boxes, but what actually happened was she came straight over to me. She tried to hug me. I stopped by putting my arms up and verbally saying, "Don't." And yet she did it anyway. I told her all she can do. I told her all she can do is what I ask her to do or how to fix it. And that was all and that I didn't want to hear from her otherwise. The second time was over text. She had been continuously texting me that she loved and missed me without any response from me. And I finally repeated what I said above. Both times she said she already knows. It's because I think she's horrible and abusive, and that's about CPS and all that about CPS. And she won't ask because she doesn't want to hear it all again. My dad showed her all the texts I sent him when I was with my friend. When she says this, she's accusing. She makes it clear that it's a fault of me and not her that I believe these things. She'll go on about how she was always there for me, how she always cried with me, when in reality, she just made it so I was comforting her when I was upset. My last text to her was a couple days ago, and I wrote this. You said I threatened you and called you horrible and abusive, like it's a fault in me and not a result of your actions. If you asked me why I was upset or what you have done to hurt me, I would have brought up specific things to talk about that have hurt me so I could understand you, but you didn't. You would rather just pretend that my generalized statements while I was texting Dad in a rush was plenty explanation for you. You don't care what I have to say. You don't care how much you've hurt me or what you've put me or what you put your feelings aside to ask. I'm not going to have contact with you until you're ready to face how you've affected me badly, because I'm trying to get better and can't pretend that there's nothing wrong with how I grew up. If you actually missed me and care about me and love me, you would care about how you've hurt me. And you don't care enough to ask. It's my decision not to talk until then. But it's a decision I made that is a direct result of the way you act in response. And for the record, brother told me what sister said. I never said that. I don't give a shit who you're with or who you love. I don't talk about you at all when she's here, because you're already going to great lengths to keep them from being able to speak with me freely. And I don't want to make things harder on Dad. For context, my little sister said that I told her my mom shouldn't love her new fiance or something. I didn't say that. And I don't actually care at all, as long as he's not abusive to my brother and sister. I don't care in any way, shape, or form if he's with my mother or not. I'm assuming she was asked the leading question, or she came to that conclusion because I changed the subject when she brings up her mother or the fiance. She's very young, and it's not uncommon for her to say that someone did or said something that they didn't, so she can voice her opinion without my mom getting mad at her for it. That'll be a great coping mechanism in the future, I'm sure. Anyway, I haven't heard from her since I sent that text, and I don't expect to. It felt good to say things as they are right now. I know I'm not wrong and that she's abusive and narcissistic. Ask me again in an hour, though, and my answer might be different. I doubt myself so much, and I wonder if I'm really blowing things out of proportion. I'm so scared that I'm causing trouble and making stress for my dad by going no contact. I guess I'm sending this to hear your opinions as you read it. I'm sorry if this is long or anything. This isn't everything that she has done. I don't want to make it any longer by going into details. Thank you for your time and everything you do for me and other people. Elliot. You're not wrong, Elliot. You're not wrong. And this was an awesome letter you wrote. It really is an awesome letter you wrote. Who knows, man? Who knows? I could have ended up being you, depending how I process it when it happened to me. So I understand the sensory deprivation and the anger and the frustration you must be feeling, and the responsibility you're trying to take on yourself, still trying to worry about your siblings and your dad to a certain extent. But your dad's an enabler, and I don't buy that he had no idea this stuff was going on. I would love for CPS to be called, but it could make things a lot worse. But she deserves to have CPS called on them. She really does. She allowed what I'm assuming is your grandfather to rape you after raping her. She knew it. And all of this is just a cover. All of this is just a cover to protect that. All this alienation now, all the gaslighting, it's all just been a cover of abuse. But for you, Elliot, you have not been de-educated. You're a smart guy. You are a smart kid, and you are well written, well spoken, researched. Don't worry about finishing high school, finishing college. You are intelligent enough where you can research things on your own that interest you and learn from them and make a career out of that. I'm telling you, your career is in writing, is in exposing this de-education stuff, exposing your life, because you write it very articulately and you have a grasp of your life. And that might be your way out. Like me, like I said, you remind me of me. So like I could have been you. But like me, Elliot, your way out of this is your narcissistic abuse by exposing it and becoming not only confident in yourself, but you can help people with your story, Elliot. You can help people. I can see it. You have that ability here. And honestly, I think you're special. I really do. I think you're special. So please take to what I'm saying to heart. Don't worry about getting a job or any type of contributions to me or anything like that. Because you got something. And I fear if you kill yourself, the world's going to miss out on something special. So keep that in mind as well, always. Thank you for writing, and I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a narcissist you'd like to expose or a topic you'd like me to cover, you know what to do with my PayPal and the email link in the description box. And remember, when you do email me your story, please put at the top of the email whether it's with or without contribution and what name you'd like to go by. This is Ollie Matthews. Thanks for watching. See you all again soon.